The fluorescent lights of the conference room hummed with the same monotonous drone that had filled my days for 2 years. The air smelled of stale coffee, recycled paper, and the quiet desperation of 1,000 employees pretending to be busy. I sat in the plastic chair, my hands folded on the table, my expression carefully neutral. The HR director didn't even make eye contact. She slid the termination papers across the table, like she was passing a napkin. "Sign here," she said. "Standard severance. You have until the end of the day to clear out your desk." No explanation and no apology. No acknowledgement that I had been a part of this company for 730 days, that I had given them everything I had, that I had made their lives infinitely easier without them ever knowing. I picked up the pen, I signed my name, and I stood up, walked to my cubicle, and packed my belongings into a cardboard box. There wasn't much. A coffee mug, a plant, a handful of notes I had written to myself, and I paused at the doorway, looked back at the cubicle that had been my prison for 2 years, and I smiled. They didn't know. They had no idea what they had just done. I walked past the security desk, past the receptionist who never remembered my name, past the glass doors that had seen me come and go for 730 days without ever really seeing me. And I walked out into the sunlight, feeling lighter than I had in years. Hashtag chapter 1, The Invisible Man. Objective commentary, The Observer's Voice. My name is James Chund, and I have been the CFO of Sterling Industries for 15 years. I have seen the company weather economic crises, leadership changes, and the occasional scandal. But I have never seen anything like what happened after Luke Sterling was fired. Luke was a quiet man, the kind of man who slipped through the cracks, who blended into the background, who never made waves. He was the husband of our CEO, Eleanor Sterling, but you would never have known it from the way she treated him. She never mentioned him at work. She never acknowledged him in meetings. She never gave him any special treatment. If anything, she treated him worse than anyone else. She gave him the smallest cubicle, the most menial assignments, the least interesting projects. She seemed almost embarrassed by his presence, as if he was a reminder of a mistake she had made. I watched him work for 2 years, and I watched him quietly solve problems that no one else could solve, fix systems that no one else understood, keep the company running without anyone ever realizing it. I saw him do things that should have made him a legend, and I saw him take no credit, no recognition, no praise. He was the invisible man, and when they fired him, they didn't realize that they were cutting out the heart of the company. The company didn't notice I was gone at first. Why would they? I was the quiet one, the transparent one, the one who had been there for 2 years without anyone ever really seeing me. They had bigger problems to worry about: quarterly reports, shareholder meetings, the relentless pressure of the market. But then the problem started. It started small. The accounting department noticed a discrepancy in the quarterly projections, a number that didn't add up. A formula that had been working perfectly for months suddenly stopped working. They tried to fix it, but they couldn't. The system was too complex, too tangled, too dependent on the work of a person who was no longer there. Then the project management system crashed. The one I had built from scratch, the one I had spent months designing, the one that had become the backbone of the entire operation. It had been working perfectly when I left, but within days of my departure, it had become a glitchy, buggy mess that no one could fix. The IT department tried to salvage it, but they couldn't. They didn't understand the code, the architecture, the logic behind the design. They had never bothered to ask. They had never bothered to learn. Within a week, 3 major projects had completely collapsed. The clients were furious. The investors were panicking. The board was demanding answers. And Eleanor Sterling, my wife, my CEO, the woman who had signed the termination papers without a second thought, was about to discover the cost of her arrogance. Hashtag chapter 2, The Reckoning. Objective commentary, The Observer's Voice. I watched Eleanor Sterling walk into the office that morning. She had been abroad, dealing with an acquisition in Europe, and she hadn't heard about the chaos yet. She was smiling, confident, secure in her power. That smile lasted exactly 7 minutes. I had a meeting scheduled with her at 9 o'clock. I was going to tell her about the problems, the crashes, the collapse of the major projects. I was going to warn her that something was terribly wrong, that the company was in danger of imploding. But I didn't get the chance. The moment she walked into the conference room, the board ambushed her. They had already heard. They had already made up their minds. They blamed her. They blamed her leadership, her decisions, her judgment. She sat down, her face pale, her hands trembling. She tried to defend herself, to explain that she had been abroad, that she hadn't known about the problems. But the board didn't care. They had made up their minds. Eleanor, the chairman, said, "We need to talk about the recent layoffs. Who did you fire?" She looked at him, confused. "I don't know. The HR department handled it. They identified the low performers and eliminated their positions." "Which positions?" the chairman demanded. "Which people?" She pulled out her phone, pulled up the termination list. Her eyes scanned the names. She was looking for something, someone, anyone who might have been responsible for the mess. And then she saw it. My name. Luke Sterling. Her face went pale. Her hands started shaking. She stared at the screen, her eyes wide with shock. "Luke," she whispered. "They fired Luke." "Who is Luke?" the chairman asked. "Was he important?" She looked up at him, her face a mask of horror. "He was my husband," she said. "And he built this company. Everything you see, everything we do, everything we have, he built it, and I just took the credit." The room went silent. The board members stared at her, their expressions a mixture of shock, confusion, and dawning horror. They had fired the most important person in the company, and they hadn't even known who he was. "Where is he now?" the chairman asked. Eleanor shook her head. "I don't know. I haven't seen him since the termination. He signed the papers and left. I didn't even know he had been fired." The silence was deafening. No one spoke. No one moved. They all knew that they had made a catastrophic mistake. And I knew, at that moment, that Eleanor Sterling's world was about to crumble. Hashtag, 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 chapter 3. The search. Objective commentary. The observer's voice. Eleanor Sterling searched for Luke for 3 weeks. She called his phone, sent him messages, contacted his friends, his family, everyone she could think of, but there was no trace of him. He had disappeared, vanished into thin air. She was desperate. Her company was falling apart. Her reputation was in tatters. She had lost the one person who had ever truly understood the business. She came to me for help. She sat in my office, her face pale, her eyes hollow. "James," she said, "I need to find him. I need to bring him back. I'll do anything. I'll give him anything. Just tell me where he is." I looked at her, and I felt a strange mixture of pity and contempt. She had ignored her husband for 2 years, dismissed his contributions, humiliated him in front of the entire company. And now, when she needed him, she was begging for him to come back. "I don't know where he is, Eleanor," I said. "And even if I did, I'm not sure I would tell you. You didn't treat him well. You didn't appreciate him. And now you're reaping the consequences of that." She started crying. Ugly, desperate tears. "I know," she sobbed. "I know I was wrong. I know I took him for granted. But I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just help me find him." I sighed. I didn't want to help her, but I knew that the company needed him. Without him, Sterling Industries would collapse. And that would affect thousands of employees, thousands of families. "Fine," I said. "I'll try to find him. But you need to promise me something, Eleanor. When he comes back, you need to treat him right. You need to give him the recognition he deserves. You need to make amends for everything you've done." She nodded frantically. "I will. I promise. I'll do anything." I started my search. I contacted a private investigator. I scoured the databases, the phone records, the bank statements. I followed every lead, every possible trace. And finally, after 3 weeks of searching, I found him. He was living in a small apartment on the other side of town, working as a freelance consultant. He was doing well, happy, successful. He had built a new life, a life without her. I contacted him, and I told him about the chaos at Sterling Industries. I told him about Eleanor's desperation. I told him that the company was on the verge of collapse, and that he was the only one who could save it. He listened silently, and when I was done, he laughed. "James," he said, "do you know why I was so invisible at Sterling Industries? Because I didn't want to be seen that I was there to help, yes, but I was also there to watch that I knew what Eleanor was like. I knew what kind of person she was, and I knew that one day she would destroy herself. I just needed to be there to see it." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Everything I built for that company," he said, "was built to be temporary. IT was all designed to fail without me. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I knew that one day I would need leverage, that I knew that one day I would need to protect myself." I stared at him, stunned. "You planned this? You planned for the company to collapse without you?" He shrugged. "I planned for the possibility, and now it's happening, and I have to decide whether I want to save them or let them burn." Objective commentary. The observer's voice. I relayed the conversation to Eleanor. She was devastated. "He planned this," she said, her voice hollow. "He knew all along. He knew what kind of person I was, and he was just waiting for me to fall." I nodded. "He was. And now he has the power to decide your fate." She stared at me, her eyes full of desperation. "What do I do, James? How do I get him back?" "You don't," I said. "You can't force him to come back. You can only ask him and hope that he's willing to forgive you." Chapter 4. The reunion. Objective commentary. The observer's voice. The reunion took place in a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. Eleanor arrived first, dressed in her finest clothes, her hair perfectly styled, her face carefully composed. She was trying to look confident, powerful, in control. But I could see the fear beneath the surface. The fear that she had lost him forever. Luke arrived 15 minutes later. He was wearing a simple jacket, his hair slightly disheveled, his expression calm and relaxed. He looked like a man who had made peace with his past and was ready to move forward. Eleanor stood up when she saw him. "Luke," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for coming." He sat down across from her, his expression unreadable. "You wanted to see me, Eleanor. I'm here. What do you want?" She took a deep breath. "I want to apologize," she said. "I want to tell you that I was wrong, that I was arrogant, dismissive, cruel, that I took you for granted. I ignored your contributions. And I let them fire you without even trying to stop it." She paused, waiting for him to respond. When he didn't, she continued. "I need you, Luke. I need you to come back. The company is falling apart without you, and I can't fix it on my own. Please, just give me a chance to make things right." Luke looked at her, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Then he smiled. "Eleanor," he said, "do you have any idea what it was like to be married to you? To be invisible, ignored, dismissed? To watch you take credit for everything I built, without ever acknowledging my existence?" She started crying. "I know," she sobbed. "I know I was terrible. I know I hurt you. But I'm sorry, Luke. I'm so sorry. Please, just give me a chance." He shook his head. "I'm not going to come back. Eleanor, I'm not going to save your company. I'm not going to clean up the mess you created. I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to let you deal with the consequences." She stared at him, her face pale with shock. "But the company," she whispered. "The employees. Thousands of people are going to lose their jobs." "I know," he said, "and that's a tragedy. But it's not my tragedy. It's yours. You built this company on lies, on manipulation, on cruelty. And now it's going to crumble." He stood up, pulled a single sheet of paper from his pocket, and slid it across the table. "Here," he said. "This is my resignation from everything. The marriage, the company, the life we built. I'm done. Eleanor, I'm done being invisible. I'm done being used. And I'm done being your safety net. He turned and walked out of the cafe. He didn't look back. Objective commentary. The observer's voice. I watched Eleanor crumble. I watched her fall apart, piece by piece, as the reality of what she had done sank in. She had lost everything. Her company, her husband, her reputation. All because she had been too arrogant, too dismissive, too blind to see what was right in front of her. She sat in that cafe for hours, staring at the paper Luke had left behind. And then she did the only thing she could do. She rebuilt. It took years. It took sacrifice. It took a willingness to admit that she had been wrong and a determination to make things right. She sold the company, paid off the debts, and started over. She became a better person, a better leader, a better woman. She learned to appreciate the people around her, to recognize their contributions, to treat them with respect. And she learned to let go of the anger, the resentment, the bitterness, to let go of the need to be seen as perfect, to be admired, to be praised. She found peace, eventually, not in success, not in power, but in humility, in the quiet recognition that she had been wrong and that she had paid the price for her mistakes. Hashtag epilogue, the invisible man's victory. I never saw Luke again. He disappeared from my life, from the company, from the city. He had moved on, built a new life, found new purpose. He was happy, successful, free. I thought about him sometimes. The invisible man who had brought down an empire with nothing more than his silence. The man who had been ignored, dismissed, and fired, and who had used that dismissal to destroy everything his wife had built. He was a legend in his own way, a cautionary tale for anyone who underestimates the power of the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the ones who are always there, never seen, never appreciated. And Eleanor, my boss, my friend, my cautionary tale, learned the hardest lesson of all, that the people you ignore today are the ones who will determine your fate tomorrow. Final objective commentary. The observer's voice. Luke Sterling's story is not a story of revenge. It's a story of self-respect. He walked away from a situation that was toxic, manipulative, and abusive. He didn't try to destroy Eleanor's company out of malice. He simply stepped back and let her deal with the consequences of her own choices. It's a reminder that we all have power, even when we feel invisible. It's a reminder that the people we dismiss today may hold the keys to our future. And it's a reminder that true strength is not about being seen, but about knowing your own worth. Luke Sterling is a hero, not because he brought down an empire, but because he walked away from one. He chose himself, his dignity, his future. And in doing so, he became the architect of his own destiny. His story is not over. It's just beginning.